He walked past the meeting room and everyone stood up. The air felt heavy with anticipation. Tom paused, a knot forming in his stomach. He hadn't expected this reaction, the sudden silence engulfing the bustling office. As Tom made his way through the hallway, his mind raced back to the morning. His boss had called him into her office, her face tight with worry, a stack of papers leaning precariously on her desk. "You've got to lead this meeting, Tom," she had said, her voice firm yet tinged with urgency. Tom nodded, though doubt churned within him. He felt like a kid walking into a room full of grown-ups, uncertain and vulnerable. Now, as he approached the glass door, the tension crackled like electricity. He hesitated. The meeting room held more than just chairs around a long table. It held expectations, judgment, and a chance, perhaps his only chance, to prove himself. With a deep breath, he pushed the door open. The sun poured through the windows, illuminating the faces of his coworkers. They were all waiting, eyes wide with curiosity, some a mix of support and skepticism. He could read their expressions like an open book. The newly assembled team had spent weeks poring over numbers, brainstorming ideas, and discussing strategies. They had trusted him to take them somewhere new and exciting, but what if he let them down? "Hey everyone," Tom said, his voice shaking slightly. The chair creaked as he sat down, a distraction that seemed to magnify the silent expectation. The room was still, the kind of stillness that felt almost sacred. It took him a moment to gather his thoughts, and during that quiet pause, he could see how a single just flicker of doubt could spiral into a full-blown panic. He stole a glance around the room. Jessica, with her ever-practical demeanor, stared at him intently. The guy in the corner, Mark, was twirling a pen between his fingers, his brow furrowed. He always got restless when he was nervous. Tom focused on the task at hand. The project they were working on was crucial. It could mean a promotion for him, or worse, failure. His voice trailed off as he watched their reactions. Would they view him as a leader? Would they believe in his vision? Or were they just waiting for him to stumble? Tom pushed through the self-doubt. The room's intensity was palpable, pressing down on him. "Right," he said, steeling himself. He pulled out his notes, each scribble a tiny anchor in the storm of pressure swirling inside him. A few heads nodded, but one thing was clear: they needed more than just words, they needed conviction. He raised his chin, attempting to exude confidence, though sweat began to bead on his forehead. Just then the door swung open again and everyone turned, and walked Derek, the head of another division. He was a tall man with an air of authority, skin tanned from golf outings and laughter that could light even the heaviest of moods. But today his eyes were serious. As he stepped in, the energy in the room shifted like a storm cloud rolling in. He asked, looking between Tom and the team. Tom could feel his heart racing, but he recognized this moment. It was a lifeline. "We're discussing the new strategies I've put together," he replied, keeping his voice steady. Derek stepped closer, an intrigued spark in his eyes. And there it was, the moment where everything shifted again. Tom took a deep breath, words spilling out now with growing clarity. He explained his ideas, how they linked to the company's vision and the tangible results he hoped to achieve. He could see people leaning in, engaged, captivated even. It was electrifying. As the minutes passed, their focus on him grew, like a wave surging forward. Discussions erupted at points, voices chiming together, and for the first time he felt like they were truly a team. A group of people investing in an idea, not just a presentation. Tom's heart swelled with hope. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about everyone present, about success as a collective unit. He gestured passionately, painting a picture of what was possible. Each word sparked reactions, enthusiasm danced in the air. Every so often, he caught Jessica's eye. She mouthed "good job" when he hit a key point, her smile infectious. He smiled back, feeling something meaningful shift within him. After he wrapped up, Derek nodded thoughtfully. "You've really put a lot into this, Tom." The room erupted into soft murmurs of agreement, and the weight that had clung to Tom's shoulders began to dissipate. But as the applause died down, Tom felt a flicker of dread. What if the success he felt flickered just as quickly? People often put their faith in a good presentation, but held back their trust. His mind wandered through what-ifs as he watched his coworkers. That's when he realized it was time for the final push. "I know we're all busy, and this isn't the only project we have." He could almost feel the ripple of energy through the room, a collective heartbeat responding to his words. They were with him, every nod and every murmur a confirmation. They stood there, not just physically but metaphorically, investing belief in the path forward. He saw Mark lean forward, a new spark igniting in his eyes. Tom listened intently, the conversation spilling into vibrant discussions. Ideas soared, suggestions flew, and challenges emerged. Each voice rejuvenated the excitement, testing the waters of the proposal Tom had laid out, and they began to build upon it, growing it further than Tom had imagined. Time slipped by unnoticed. Before long, they figured out a path forward together. The plan began to take shape, stronger and more ready for the challenges that lay ahead. Then something unexpected happened, like a scene from a movie. As the meeting flowed with enthusiasm, the door creaked open once more, and in came another senior manager, Sarah. She had been pivotal in the company's growth over the last decade. Her presence commanded respect, and the moment she entered, the energy shifted yet again. Everyone, including Tom, stood up, a spontaneous response of respect and acknowledgement for her leadership. Tom felt a rush of adrenaline as he watched her take in the scene, smiling faces, animated discussions, notes jotted down with fervor. Sarah turned to Tom, her eyebrows raised in surprise. "Well, it looks like I didn't miss the action after all," she said, a playful smirk dancing across her lips. He smiled back, feeling a rush of validation. She stepped deeper into the room, her interest piqued. Tom took a deep breath and began again, fueled by the momentum they had built together. This time, as he spoke, he noticed something within himself. The timid man who had walked past that meeting room was no longer there. Instead, he was transformed into a confident leader, someone who could inspire and motivate not just himself, but a whole team. His hands animatedly gestured as he explained, and he felt the warmth of belief from his colleagues surround him like a protective cloak. The emotional weight that had chained him fell away, replaced by a sense of purpose. As they wrapped up, there was no denying the atmosphere of camaraderie, the thrill of collaboration. Tom stepped away from the meeting room, leaving behind not just his fears, but a new layer of connection. It wasn't just that the room had stood when he walked in. They were standing with him now, united, ready to rise together or fall together. In that moment, Tom knew that leadership wasn't about the title or position. It was about heart, about connection, and giving others a reason to stand alongside you. And as he walked back through the narrow hallway, he was no longer just Tom the employee, but Tom the teammate, Tom the leader, ready to shape their shared future. He walked past the meeting room and everyone stood up. That's when Matt realized he was at the center of it all, a whirlwind of eyes, a convergence of expectations. The atmosphere wrapped around him like a thick fog, a mix of anxiety and anticipation. The room went silent as if the air itself was holding its breath. Matt took a deep breath, his heart racing. Just that morning he had been losing sleep over this moment. With every tick of the clock, the pressure mounted. He couldn't shake the fear clawing at him, fear that whispered doubts into his ear, questions that spiraled in the back of his mind. What if they don't take you seriously? But this wasn't just any meeting, it was the asterisk meeting. The one that would determine the future of the project he had devoted months to. If they believed in him, it could change everything. As he approached the glass door, he tried to summon the confidence he desperately needed. Taking one last glance at his reflection, he adjusted his tie, ran a hand through his hair, and plunged into the room. The moment he entered, all eyes were on him. He felt the weight of their stares, a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and a flicker of hope. The round table was set, papers scattered, laptops open, each person waiting for him to speak. There was Sarah, the team leader, her penetrating gaze searching for assurance. Next to her sat Raj, the skeptic, who had often pushed back against Matt's ideas. And there was Lisa, the quiet one, always absorbing information but never the first to offer her thoughts. Hey everyone, Matt said, his voice catching slightly. The chairs creaked as his coworkers settled back down, creating a strange rhythm in the room, the sound of uncertainty mixed with anticipation. He could feel the knot in his stomach tightening as silence enveloped him. Here he was, standing before a group of people who held not just his fate, but the fate of an entire project that had cost countless hours, sleepless nights, and huge amounts of coffee. Matt cleared his throat, pushing away the rising tide of anxiety. There was a fleeting moment of connection. He could sense their collective energy, a kind of invisible thread binding them together. Whether it was enthusiasm or doubt, it was hard to pin down, but it was there and it was tangible. He gestured toward the projector, where a slide lit up showcasing their hard work. Just then he noticed something odd about the room. They were all seated, yet everyone had instinctively risen as he entered. It wasn't just the physical act of standing. It felt like a signal, a recognition of his role, of the steps he'd taken to get there. This was their way of saying they were with him, to go on this journey together. "Let's dive in," he continued, his voice gaining strength. He pointed to the first slide, outlining their goals, increased engagement, innovative strategies, and a bold approach that would set them apart from the competition. Yet even as he spoke, an undercurrent of doubt lingered just beneath the surface of his consciousness. With each word, he saw small shifts across the room. Raj crossed his arms, an instinctual defense mechanism he often resorted to when confronted with new ideas. Lisa's fingers danced nervously over her laptop, her energy fluctuating as if waiting for the storm to hit. How was he going to pull them into his vision? "Here's the thing," he said, rallying his conviction. "If we focus on customer feedback, we can tailor our approach to meet their needs more effectively. It's not just about us." Matt saw Sarah lean in closely, her eyes glinting with interest, and that, for him, was a small victory. He pressed on, fueling a fire that burned within him, igniting everyone else's interest. If we can personalize our offerings, we will not only increase our client base, but also retain the loyalty they need. Think about it. And just as he thought he was breaking through, Raj's voice cut in like a floodgate opening. "But how do you plan on implementing these changes?" The challenge struck like thunder. Matt hesitated for a fraction of a second, his mind racing to piece together a response. It was a moment of reckoning where he could either falter or rise. He took a breath, focus returning. "We have to do it in phases, start small, test the waters, and scale." He could see the gears turning in Raj's head, the skepticism slowly giving way to curiosity. A collective murmur floated through the room. That was it. They were talking, exchanging thoughts. Matt's heart started to race with excitement. If they were starting to engage, maybe they were beginning to believe. Matt could read their faces now, flickers of approval among the team. Even Lisa had channeled her nerves into questions, her eyes brightening with each suggestion. She offered tentatively, her voice gaining strength. Matt responded, and a wave of encouragement washed over him. Fingers danced on keyboards, notes were jotted down, and voices filled the room with ideas, not just Matt's ideas, but a tapestry of thoughts woven together by the entire team. It felt electric. The unity he had feared would never come alive. Time raced forward, the clock barely registering the minutes slipping by. The tension transformed into momentum as they brainstormed, debated, and collaborated. One discussion flowed effortlessly into the next. It wasn't just about numbers or projections, it was about trust, belief, and shared goals. Matt felt something shift within him, a surge of belief and clarity. This wasn't just a presentation, it was a call to action. They were in this together, bound by a common purpose, and the more they connected over their ideas, the more the doubt faded away. As he glanced around, he could see Raj nodding now, no longer the naysayer, but a contributor. Lisa's voice had grown stronger, infusing them all with a sense of ownership. And Sarah, she was grinning, beaming with approval as she occasionally chimed in, steering the conversation toward larger perspectives. With the energy in the room building, Matt felt as if he were orchestrating something monumental. Every head nod, every supportive look made him want to push harder. "Let's map this out," he said, his voice resonating with newfound authority. The walls of the meeting room seemed to pulse with vibrancy, connecting them in a way he had never imagined. This was no longer his journey alone, it was a collaborative mission. As they approached the conclusion of their meeting, Matt noticed a transformative feeling spread across the room. This was not just a group of colleagues, it was a united front, each member invested in the success of what they had crafted together. And then it hit him. He stood there before them, the weight of their support a tangible presence. He asked, arms open wide, inviting every person in that room to contribute. He could feel the energy coiling back toward him, a wave of affirmation washing through the space. With spirited chatter erupting, they all voiced their commitment, each person echoing agreement, standing up one last time, a powerful act symbolizing their readiness to move forward. It was a moment unlike any other. Matt felt a warm rush of pride. He had walked into that room with doubt, but now he walked out with their absolute trust. Together, they would take on the world, or at least the next quarter. They were united in a vision. They had transformed from solitary players into a formidable team. As he stepped out of the meeting room, Matt could hardly believe the transformation that had taken place. The haunting doubts that once plagued him melted away in the realization that he was no longer just alone in this fight. He had become a leader, someone who had inspired trust in others, turned doubts into plans and doubts into potential. He walked down the hallway, no longer the unsure employee, but a beacon of confidence. Today was just the beginning, not just for him, but for everyone who had stood up in that room. As they began mapping their journey, he felt liberated, breathing easier, knowing that together they could reach heights they had never imagined. He walked past the meeting room and everyone stood up. It was an odd sight, a collective motion of curiosity and respect. Mark took a deep breath, the weight of their gaze settling heavily on his shoulders. The room buzzed with a mix of anticipation and uncertainty, like a tightly wound spring ready to uncoil. Just moments before, Mark had been staring at his computer screen, fighting a whirlwind of emotions. Doubts gnawed at him. What if they didn't believe in his vision? What if he stumbled over his words and made a fool of himself? He had always considered himself more of a follower than a leader, a support role rather than the star of the show. But this was different. The project they were about to discuss could reshape their company's future, and he was at the helm whether he liked it or not. Taking a deep breath, Mark walked into the glass-walled meeting room, the sunlight streaming in and illuminating the faces of his colleagues. They were waiting for him, eyes filled with questions and expectations. To Mark, it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into the unknown. He could either take the leap or turn back. Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice just above a whisper at first. The boldness he needed felt elusive. As if anticipating his hesitation, the team leaned in, eager for his words. Each person in that room had invested time, energy, and hope into this project. If he stumbled, it wouldn't just be his failure, it would be theirs too. Taking a quick glance around, Mark saw familiar faces. There was Sarah, the ambitious project manager with her sharp features and keen insights. Next to her sat Mike, the data analyst, who often sprinkled humor into tense moments. And then there was Emily, who had the uncanny ability to make everyone feel heard. They were all looking at him, and the weight of their expectations pressed down like a heavy blanket. "Today we're here to discuss our new strategy," Mark continued, trying to find his footing. He let the words flow, willing himself to embrace the role he had taken on. As he spoke, Mark tried to steady the tremor in his hands. He was more than just a cog in a wheel, he was leading the charge. He pointed to the projector screen, where slides showcasing their research lit up the room. Our main goal is to enhance customer engagement and improve our service delivery." As he presented, Mark noticed the expressions of his colleagues transforming. The initial skepticism in some of their eyes began to wane, replaced by intrigue, but Raj, the resident skeptic, crossed his arms. He challenged, his tone blaring with doubt. Mark's heart raced. In a way, Raj's skepticism was a double-edged sword. It kept everyone on their toes, but also pushed Mark to prove himself. Gathering his thoughts, he replied confidently, "Absolutely. I've analyzed the feedback we received from our clients, and I believe we can build a strategy that aligns with their needs. This isn't just speculation." He saw Raj uncross his arms, a small but significant shift. It was like a tiny glimmer of possibility, and with it, a spark ignited in Mark's chest. Perhaps he could turn this around. "Let's look at some real examples," Mark continued, his voice growing stronger. "We implemented the recent changes suggested by our last client survey. Engagement increased by 20%. The room hummed with energy. As he spoke, Mark could feel a connection forming, a bridge between him and his team. Ideas began to flow back and forth, and the atmosphere transformed from one of tension to collaboration. They were starting to rally behind his vision, and for the first time he felt like a leader. Sarah chimed in, "What if we also enhance our online platforms? Our website has been outdated for a while." Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, and it fueled the fire within Mark. "Yes," he exclaimed, riding the wave of momentum. "Integrating user-friendly features and making our content more accessible will create a better experience for our clients." As the discussion intensified, each member contributed their thoughts. Mike suggested leveraging social media analytics to target campaigns effectively. Emily added that they should focus on sharing customer success stories to build trust. Mark listened intently, taking mental notes and feeling a sense of gratitude. This was no longer just his asterisk vision, it was their asterisk vision. Yet just as the energy peaked, Mark felt another wave of doubt crash over him. What if it all fell apart? The fear of failure loomed like a dark cloud. He reminded himself that everyone in that room believed in their potential, and if they were willing to invest their thoughts and ideas, he had to step up. It clicked. He couldn't let the fear of failing overshadow the chance of succeeding. He had to steer this ship no matter how rough the waters. "Okay, everyone," Mark said, attempting to shift the conversation back to the mission. "We've generated some incredible ideas today, but now we need to bring this all together." As they structured their plan, Mark leaned on the input from his team, and it turned into a mosaic of shared responsibilities. They were brainstorming together, creating a path fueled by accountability and enthusiasm. It was a beautiful thing to witness, and for him, it felt like a breakthrough. Minutes turned into hours as they discussed how to roll out their strategies systematically. Mark could hardly believe the energy in the room. All doubts evaporated, replaced by a sense of purpose that pulsed through him like electricity. "Set some timelines and milestones," Mark suggested, intending to ground their ideas into tangible action. Each person nodded, jotting down tasks and getting increasingly animated about the direction they were heading. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed Raj scribbling down thoughts. This was a man who had once challenged him at every turn. Now he looked inspired, caught up in the excitement of what lay ahead. "I can take the lead on the client feedback survey," Raj announced, his tone firm. The room erupted in agreement, a chorus of collaboration echoing in that once solemn space. As Mark stepped back, taking it all in, he felt a new sense of pride. They were not just a group of colleagues, they had transformed into a team, each member eager to contribute. Within that room, he had discovered a community, a network woven with trust and shared goals. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of brainstorming, they reached the conclusion of their meeting. Mark's heart raced with exhilaration. "So we have our plan, our roles, and our timeline." The response was thunderous. Rang out from the group, their support strengthening him, filling him with confidence. He stood taller, examining each face around the table. This wasn't just about achieving a business objective, it was about creating something impactful together. As they wrapped up and began to leave the room, Mark felt a wave of relief wash over him. But it was more than that, it was a feeling of empowerment. He had stepped into that meeting overwhelmed and uncertain, yet now he walked out as a figure of leadership. Walking through the office corridor, Mark felt an unexpected lightness, as if the weight he had carried for far too long had been lifted. He could hardly believe he had ignited such enthusiasm, and it was thrilling to feel their collective energy. And then it occurred to him. He realized that standing up wasn't just about physical posture, it was about belief. Every time his colleagues had stood up in that meeting, it was their way of saying that they were ready to support each other. It was a powerful statement, a promise to unite against the odds. In that moment, the world felt full of possibilities. He had walked past the meeting room and discovered something profound. He understood that leadership was not just about directing others, it was about empowering them. It was about building trust, creating connections, and igniting a fire in those around you. As he approached his desk, ready to tackle the next challenge, he knew that together they could move mountains. And with a smile on his face, Mark embraced the journey ahead, knowing they had each other's backs. The remarkable transformation was just the beginning. Together, they were unstoppable. He walked past the meeting room and everyone stood up. The collective rise felt like an electric charge in the air. Jordan paused, heart thumping in his chest, his breath caught somewhere between surprise and anxiety. It was as if the very act of entering had transformed him from a mere employee into something larger, a figure at the center of their attention. The warmth of their gaze mingled with the coolness of the room, and he felt an unfamiliar tension surrounding him. Moments before, Jordan had been pacing in the narrow hallway, rehearsing his pitch in his mind, battling a storm of self-doubt. What if they don't take me seriously? Those thoughts swirled like a blizzard, clouding his focus. He could hardly fathom the depths of expectation held by everyone who now waited eagerly inside that room. The meeting had been scheduled for weeks, and everyone knew what was at stake. The project was pivotal, a new product launch that could either propel the company to success or lead to its downfall. As Jordan stepped closer to the glass door, he felt the weight of his colleagues' hopes resting squarely on his shoulders. He clenched his fists, determined not to back down. Pushing the door open, he stepped inside and was immediately struck by the sight before him. The long conference table, polished to a shine, was surrounded by familiar faces, all expectantly awaiting his words. There was Michael, the seasoned manager who had mentored him since day one, and Lisa, the ever-energetic marketing director who had a knack for turning ideas into vibrant campaigns. Everyone looked poised, their expressions a mix of curiosity and a subtle challenge. It felt like standing at the edge of a diving board, heart racing, staring down at the water below. Good morning, everyone," Jordan stammered, his voice cracking slightly. The silence that followed felt deafening, amplifying his insecurities. He fought to gather himself, wiping invisible sweat from his palms onto his trousers. No one sat down. Instead, they each leaned in slightly, as if wanting to absorb every ounce of what he had to say. The energy in the room shifted. What had started as intimidating was now invigorating. He realized they weren't just waiting for him to perform. They were ready to engage, ready to believe. Each word carried the weight of his intent, and slowly he began to find his footing. The confidence in his tone surprised him, lifting some of the heaviness from his shoulders. Jordan glanced at the projected slides, prepared with data, statistics, and bold visuals. He had pored over them for hours, but this wasn't just about flashy designs or compelling numbers. This was personal. This product was born from countless late nights, working alongside his team, and every ounce of his passion needed to shine through. When he turned back to face his colleagues, he caught the flickering lights of encouragement in Sarah's eyes, the head of product development, who had always pushed him to think bigger. "We can do this together," she seemed to say without words. He moved seamlessly through the presentation, outlining their strategies, exploring target demographics, and highlighting potential outreach methods. The more he spoke, the more the atmosphere transformed from tension to excitement. Jordan felt a rhythm build, a shared heartbeat between him and his colleagues. It was the camaraderie he had longed for, a group pulling together to create something extraordinary. "This isn't just about numbers or projections," he continued, his voice gaining volume. "It's about how we connect with our customers on a deeper level." As he spoke, he could see Raj, always the straight shooter, leaning back in his chair, looking thoughtful. Jordan took a breath, knowing that Raj's insights often pushed the group to think differently. Raj asked, his tone probing but not challenging. Jordan felt momentarily off balance. "Great question, Raj. I think we need to delve into customer feedback first. What are their needs? What do they want?" The answer felt right, and he saw Raj nod slowly, a sign of approval. The room began to buzz as others jumped in, offering suggestions, ideas, and critiques. Suddenly, Jordan wasn't leading a meeting. He was facilitating a conversation that mattered. It was like standing in the center of a storm while the winds carried him toward something great. Collaborative branding could be key, Lisa suggested, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Jordan replied, energized by the exchange. That could make a powerful impact. The atmosphere was electric, crackling with enthusiasm and shared purpose. Time ticked away unnoticed, and soon topics flowed over one another like a river rushing toward the ocean. They discussed logistics, setting milestones, determining who would manage what aspects of the project. Ideas bounced back and forth, every suggestion building upon the last. The team birthed not just a plan, but a vision that felt alive. Jordan stepped back, watching as they pieced everything together. It was unfolding beautifully, like a well-rehearsed dance where each member stepped forward and backward in perfect harmony. Their voices merged into a single echo, a collective voice that resonated with belief and determination. But then a small voice inside him surfaced again. What if he hadn't prepared enough? What if he let them down? Glancing at the clock, he felt the pressure creeping back, whispering fears that clawed at his resolve. But when he looked at the faces surrounding him, he saw understanding and support. They were investing in his vision in him. Just as doubts began to fog his mind, Michael, with a reassuring smile, interrupted his spiraling thoughts. "Jordan, what you've laid out is solid. I can help draft the budget proposals to keep everything aligned." There it was again, that glow of confidence washing over him. With each supportive comment, he felt the collective weight of fear lift. They were all in this together. The sense of community and trust surged through the room like fire. With the engagement peaking, he turned to the team. "So, are we all on the same page?" echoed around the room, a chorus of faith. Jordan felt his heart swell. They were united in purpose, all pulling together in one direction like a well-oiled machine. As the meeting wrapped up, he could see the spark of excitement in everyone's eyes. They had transformed from separate entities into an undeniably strong unit, a team ready to take on the world outside those glass walls. Jordan walked out of the meeting room, a lightness in his step as he passed the other employees milling about. No longer feeling small and uncertain, he felt larger than life. The way they had stood up when he entered was a signal, but it had also become a mantra. They embraced him as a leader, granting him the confidence he hadn't realized he needed so profoundly. As he navigated through the office halls, carrying the energy of the meeting with him, Jordan contemplated the journey ahead. He couldn't shake the realization that leadership was not just about calling the shots. It was about creating a space where everyone's voice mattered, where trust flourished. He remembered the times he had doubted himself, the struggle of believing in his abilities. That morning had felt like standing before a blank canvas, unsure of which colors to choose. But now, with every step, he felt empowered, painting a picture of success that included them all. Arriving at his desk, Jordan was met with emails and notifications that demanded attention, yet they no longer felt overwhelming. Instead, they were reminders of what lay ahead, opportunities to push forward, to collaborate, and to grow. Reflecting on the team he had just left behind, he felt a rush of gratitude. They had taken a chance on him, embraced his vision, and filled the room with belief. Standing in that space of shared energy had sparked something incredible. It had revealed to him the essence of leadership, the ability to inspire others and create connections that drove collective success. For Jordan, today was not just another meeting, it was a turning point. They hadn't just stood up for him, they had stood up for each other, for their shared dreams, and for the mutual respect that had been cultivated within their team. As he prepared to dive into the next tasks, a smile crept onto his face. He was not alone in this journey. They were all in it together, ready to face whatever the world threw at them. With newfound confidence, he opened his laptop, ready to take on the challenges ahead, not just as Jordan the employee, but as Jordan the leader, and part of a remarkable team that was about to soar. He walked past the meeting room and everyone stood up. It was a silent, synchronized gesture that sent a chill up Max's spine. The table was surrounded by his colleagues, their expressions a mosaic of expectation and disbelief. For a moment, time seemed to freeze, and all he could hear was the echo of his own heartbeat. Max took a step back, hesitating as he reached for the door. Just moments ago, he had been sitting at his desk, scribbling last-minute notes, or rather drowning in a tidal wave of pressure. The looming project deadline felt like a boulder perched precariously over his head. Today wasn't just another meeting. It was the asterisk meeting that would decide the fate of his team's future. Expectations were high and the stakes were even higher. "Come on, you can do this," he whispered to himself, pushing the doubts aside. He was terrified. What if he stuttered? What if his ideas fell flat? In the tech industry, one misstep could lead to disaster, and his mind spiraled back to the mistakes he'd made in the past. But as he took a deep breath and crossed the threshold, he felt an electric current of possibility surge through him. The room was filled with familiar faces. Rachel, the sales lead, whose unwavering support had been a beacon during dark times, Eric, the stern but fair team leader, and Maya, the brilliant data analyst who had unearthed crucial insights for their project. "Good morning, everyone," Max said, his voice slightly shaky but improving as he found his footing. Each person maintained that standing position, eyes locked on him. The room buzzed with an energy he could almost touch. "Today we're here to discuss our new product launch," he continued, compelling himself to embrace the moment. He glanced at the projector screen displaying vibrant graphics and compelling statistics. Each slide was a testament to sleepless nights spent contemplating strategy, iterating on ideas, and poring over data. This wasn't just a presentation, it was a piece of himself. As he launched into his pitch, weaving together facts and emotion, something shifted in the room. He noticed Sarah nodding intently, her expression a mix of contemplation and inspiration. It was the encouragement he needed. The more he spoke about the product's potential to revolutionize their market, the more he felt the hesitance beginning to melt away. The fire in his voice ignited a flicker of interest in Eric's usually stoic demeanor, a sign that he was leaning in. Yet just as his confidence was building, Raj, known for his candid critiques, interjected. "All this sounds great, but what's the hard data to back it up?" The moment felt tense, as if everyone in the room held their breath, waiting to see how Max would respond. Max paused, his heart racing. Raj's words were grounded in a truth that couldn't be ignored, but instead of crumbling under pressure, something clicked within him. He remembered the countless hours he and Maya had poured into research. "That's a fair point, Raj," he replied, his voice steadier now. "In fact, our data shows a significant shift in consumer demand." He gestured to the screen, showcasing the surveys and stats that Maya had meticulously compiled. He saw the skepticism from Raj slowly begin to dissolve into interest. The transformation in the room was palpable, like air slowly escaping from a tense balloon. But the real breakthrough came when Maya added, "Beyond the numbers, we've also uncovered some exciting anecdotes from our focus groups. People don't just want a new product, they want a connection to the brand." There it was, the human element. Max could almost see the collective lightbulb moment amongst his colleagues. There was more at stake here than market share. It was about storytelling, connecting emotionally, harnessing the power of their brand like never before. As the discussion picked up momentum, ideas flowed freely. Lisa suggested a campaign centered around customer stories, emphasizing personal experiences with their products. Rachel chimed in about the potential of social media, where real voices could amplify the brand. The room transformed into a creative explosion, ideas bouncing off the walls like fireworks. Max felt his heart swell with emotion, but just as they reached a crescendo of excitement, Eric raised a cautionary finger. "This is fantastic, everyone, but we need a concise action plan." For a moment, Max felt a flicker of self-doubt creep back in. What if they were all just caught up in the moment? But he took a deep breath, fueled by the energy of his team. "Let's break it down," he suggested, heart racing. They embarked on a whirlwind brainstorming session, creating actionable goals. Every voice added value, everyone contributed. What started as a daunting meeting transformed into a collaborative symphony of ideas, blending together into a vision that felt powerful and inclusive. With every discussion, Max saw his team come alive, and with each second, the bond they shared deepened. As they wrapped up their plans, Max felt a rush of adrenaline. The project was no longer just an idea, it was a shared mission. He could feel the energy radiating around the room, coalescing into an unyielding force. The doubts that had plagued him earlier began to evaporate, replaced by gratitude for his team and excitement for the journey ahead. Max asked, looking around the table, hoping to find the same spark of ambition in each pair of eyes. Echoed, bouncing off the walls like a triumphant anthem. Max smiled, knowing they had crossed a significant threshold. They weren't just coworkers now, they had become a community, bound by shared dreams and collective ambition. As they left the meeting room, still buzzing with excitement, Max caught sight of everyone around him. They were no longer just attendees of a meeting, but champions ready to charge forward. He had stepped in apprehensive, but now felt like a leader and anchor point for the vibrant energy swirling around him. Walking through the office halls, he felt the weight of something profound. People greeted him with smiles and nods, their respect palpable. That simple act of standing when he entered had shifted everything, granting him a deeper sense of purpose. Teeming with newfound confidence, Max realized he had the tools at his disposal to lead, not with authority, but with heart. The last glimmers of self-doubt faded. Instead, there was clarity in his mind, there was strength in his step. He sat back down at his desk, reflecting on the vibrant meeting they had just experienced. It wasn't just about one person's vision. It was a shared dream, one that they all believed in, and now they were prepared to manifest it together. Gazing out the window, the city stretched before him, bustling with life, filled with challenges and opportunities. The world outside was vast, but he felt more than ready. He could take it on asterisk, they could take it on. With every tick of the clock, he envisioned their project unfolding, thriving, reaching heights no one had thought possible. Max was not alone. He had a team, and together they would harness their collective power. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Max took a deep breath, filled with hope and determination. They would go forward united, ready to make their mark on the world. The journey had just begun, but the path was clear, and there was no turning back. They were in this together, ready to build something remarkable, ready to soar. He walked past the meeting room, and everyone stood up. It was an unexpected, almost surreal moment that caught Jason off guard. The room buzzed with an energy that felt palpable, a mix of anticipation and an unspoken challenge. His heart raced. Just moments ago, he was walking down the hallway, absorbing the energy of the office, dreading what lay ahead. Jason wasn't just a young employee hoping to climb the corporate ladder. Today, he was the team lead, and the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. As he approached the glass door, he could feel the eyes of his colleagues tracking his every move. Would they view him as a leader, or would they see him as just another face among many? Taking a deep breath, he finally opened the door. The sight that greeted him was striking. 12 people surrounded the long conference table, all looking at him with expressions that ranged from curiosity to support. There was Carla, the seasoned marketing manager, whose insights had often shone a light on darkest nights. Next to her sat Marcus, the tech wizard, his fingers always typing furiously on his laptop. Everyone awaited direction, and the magnetic energy in the room pulled him further inside. Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice wavering slightly. The room remained silent, but the air crackled with expectation. It was like standing in front of a roaring crowd, the spotlight shining just a little too bright. He could feel their anticipation, but also their skepticism. Jason glanced at the projector screen. His carefully designed slides, each one a labor of love, waited for him to unleash them. Today, we're here to discuss the new project we've been working on, he continued, looking each person in the eye as he spoke. The words somehow felt heavier in this moment. As he spoke, he noticed the subtle shifts in their expressions. Heads nodded, but he could still sense lingering doubts. Would they buy into his vision? Jason's palms felt clammy. He reminded himself to breathe. This was not just about him, it was also about them and their future together. Data we've collected shows that our target audience is shifting, he explained. They're looking for more than just a product, they want an experience. Mark, the analyst who often played the role of the critical thinker, raised an eyebrow. That sounds interesting, but do you have hard numbers to back this up? What if we misunderstand our audience? Jason felt his stomach sink. Doubt clawed at him, but he refused to crumble. Absolutely, he replied, forcing strength into his voice. I've compiled data from our last 3 customer surveys. The results reveal that 80% of respondents prefer brands that offer a personalized experience. The tension shifted slightly as he saw Mark take a note. Maybe he was winning them over. Hope flickered in Jason's heart. He pulled up the first slide, showcasing the survey results, and proceeded to weave together facts and stories. Think of it this way, Jason continued. What if we created a program that allows customers to engage with our brand directly? As he spoke, he began to feel the rhythm of the room change. The skepticism that had once filled the air seemed to dissipate. Carla leaned forward, curiosity ignited. Can you elaborate on this program? With renewed fervor, Jason shared his vision. He talked about user-friendly apps, feedback loops, and community engagement strategies. Each suggestion felt like a landmine. At any moment, it could either explode into celebration or fall flat on its face. But as he continued, he noticed more heads nodding, more eyes lighting up with excitement. This could be the breakthrough we've needed, Jason added, feeling more daring with each word. Imagine the potential. Suddenly, Maya, the ever-creative design specialist, raised her hand. What if we showcased customer stories? Her enthusiasm was infectious, and Jason felt the room shift yet again. Yes, he exclaimed. By humanizing our brand, we not only deepen connections, but we also invite our audience into our story. The discussion took off like wildfire. Ideas bounced around the room, each contributing a brick to the foundation they were building. They brainstormed campaign ideas, outreach methods, partnership opportunities, and a wealth of engagement strategies. More voices joined, fueled by Jason's passion, and what had begun as a daunting meeting transformed into a collaborative storm of creativity. Time seemed to dissolve as they wove together a tapestry of ideas. Jason could hardly believe how alive it felt. He had stepped into the room burdened with doubt and was now overflowing with excitement. The energy was electric. They had seamlessly shifted from a single vision to one they all shared. But just as they neared a moment of clarity, Eric, the team leader, gently interrupted. All these ideas sound fantastic, but we need to keep it manageable. A wave of uncertainty washed over Jason. I hadn't considered that, he stammered, but then an idea sparked. What if we break it down into phases? He watched as Eric nodded thoughtfully, the tension slowly easing. They began layering their ideas with structure, outlining action steps, deadlines, and roles. As they collaborated on the plan, Jason's heart soared. This was what teamwork was meant to be. They were all invested in this vision, working together to create something meaningful. Let's assign roles based on our strengths, he suggested. They began to delegate tasks. Maya would script the ad campaigns, Mark would crunch the numbers to refine their approach, and Carla would lead the outreach efforts. Each person embraced their roles like a key unlocking a door, excited to move forward. The room hummed with energy as they finalized their strategy, and laughter echoed through the walls. They found a connection not only in their ideas, but in their willingness to support one another. Jason marveled at how quickly things had transformed. It was nothing short of a miracle. Jason asked, his voice steadying. A chorus of affirmatives rang through the room, a united front ready to turn their dreams into reality. As everyone prepared to leave, Jason felt his pulse quicken with joy. They were bound together by something deeper than just a project. They were a team committed to pushing boundaries and supporting one another. As he stepped out into the hallway, the weight of expectation felt lighter. The world outside was flooded with daylight, and he realized he had emerged from that meeting not just as a participant, but as a leader. It was a defining moment. He could feel it in his bones. Jason moved through the office, greeted by smiles and nods. He was no longer just one of many. He had discovered something powerful. Not only could he lead, but he could inspire too. Every step felt confident, charged with purpose. He returned to his desk, buzzing with anticipation. The project was no longer just a mere task. It was a journey they were about to embark on together. He glanced back at the meeting room entrance, where a feeling of warmth spread within him. It wasn't just that everyone stood for him. It was a sign of respect, an acknowledgement that he could take them somewhere new. They recognized in him the ability to connect, to transform ideas into action, and to lead with purpose. As he pulled out a notebook, Jason began jotting down ideas, fueled by the excitement of the meeting. Each word poured from his pen like a river, flowing with anticipation for what lay ahead. They were ready to challenge their limits, to innovate and push forward. He mapped out timelines, projected milestones, and commitments, driven by the collective energy they had built. The future felt bright, illuminated by the vision they had woven together. Suddenly, the office phone rang, jolting him from his thoughts. It was Eric. Jason eased into his chair, a mixture of curiosity and nervousness coursing through him. As he walked into Eric's office, he was met with a warm smile. "I just wanted to say how impressed I was with the meeting. You really pulled everyone together." The words struck him, resonating deep within. In that moment, he could feel the collective belief of his team flowing through him. "Thank you, Eric." With genuine sincerity, Eric leaned forward. Leadership isn't just about making decisions, it's about creating a space where everyone feels valued and empowered. Jason felt a mixture of pride and gratitude swell within him. Smiling approvingly, Eric nodded. "Exactly. Remember, you're not just leading a project, you're shaping a culture." As he returned to his desk, Jason couldn't shake that feeling of warmth. Every moment in that meeting had felt like a tapestry stitching together the strengths of each person in the room. It wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder, it was about forging connections, empathy, and a shared vision. With the organization brimming with possibilities, Jason immersed himself in the tasks at hand, fueled by the knowledge that he wasn't just going through the motions. He was part of something bigger, a narrative waiting to unfold. As the sun dipped low, casting a golden hue over the city, Jason felt a surge of determination. Together, they would face the challenges ahead. They would carry each other's strengths into the future. In that moment, he knew they were no longer just colleagues. They were a family, ready to embark on a journey that would change their lives and their company forever. And this was just the beginning. He walked past the meeting room and everyone stood up. The sudden motion sent a jolt of surprise through Ethan. He paused at the door, feeling a wave of unease wash over him. This wasn't just another day at the office. It was the asterisk day. The day he had spent sleepless nights preparing for, crafting a presentation and gathering data. Everything he had worked for was leading to this moment, and now all eyes were on him. As he stepped inside, the sight was overwhelming. The long table was filled with his colleagues, a formidable array of talent and experience. Each face was a blend of curiosity and anticipation. There was Rachel, the brilliant marketing strategist, whose ideas often set the bar high. Mike, the data analyst with an uncanny ability to extract meaning from numbers that others missed. And then there was Jenna, the team leader, the anchor who could calm any storm. "Good morning, everyone," Ethan said, his voice piercing the thick silence. He could feel the warmth of their gazes, but he was also acutely aware of the pressure. Would they see him as a capable leader? Or merely as an underwhelming employee who had never quite grasped the reins before? He took a deep breath, trying to center himself. The weight of expectation pressed down, the air thick with unspoken questions. Had he overreached? Had he promised too much? As these thoughts invaded his mind, he glanced at the projector screen behind him, where the first slide displayed the bold title of their upcoming project. "Here to discuss our product launch," he began, attempting to inject some confidence into his voice. As he spoke, he noticed Rachel leaning in, her earlier skepticism fading. This was his chance, a moment to break through the haze of doubt that surrounded him. He shared insights on market trends, backing them up with statistics that he had meticulously prepared. Recent surveys show that consumer interest is shifting towards personalized solutions. But then, as always, the doubts crept back. They didn't believe him. What if he fumbled at the worst possible moment? His stomach twisted at the thought. Mike asked, his voice steady yet probing. Ethan's heart raced. Mike had always challenged him, pushing him to defend his ideas, and that instinctual defense mechanism flared within him. "Absolutely," he replied, his voice gaining strength. "We've outlined a phased approach." Felt like a light switch had turned on. Shoulders relaxed slightly around the room, and heads began to nod. Jenna jumped in, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "And we have enough budget for a pilot program, right?" The momentum began to build, and Ethan felt a flicker of hope. Maybe he could pull this off after all. "Yes, we can start small and scale as we learn," Ethan replied, gratitude flooding through him. The fear that had been shackling him was slipping away as each voice contributed to the growing momentum. They were becoming a team, united by a common goal, and this was a moment of transformation. "Let's brainstorm some features that truly resonate with our users," Rachel suggested, her excitement contagious. "What if we included customizable options?" With every passing minute, the discussion took stronger shape. Ideas flowed like a river, each contribution adding to the vision they were crafting together. Ethan felt himself get lost in the energy of the room. It wasn't just his project anymore, it was theirs, a shared mission crafted from the essence of their collective talents. But just as enthusiasm peaked, Mike raised a cautionary hand. "We need to keep things realistic." The words hung heavy in the air. Ethan's heart sank momentarily. What if Mike was right? But he had come to realize that true progress often began with a bold idea, even if it felt out of reach. "I get that, Mike," he said slowly, "but sometimes the dream can ignite the practical. If we set ambitious goals, we can find a way to achieve them." To his relief, nods of agreement started to emerge. Rachel's fingers danced on the table. "Ethan's right." The conversation surged forward, excitement reigniting like wildfire. With every idea thrown about, Ethan's confidence grew, and so did the energy in the room. They began to create timelines, allocating responsibilities, assigning tasks based on each person's strengths. Suddenly, something shifted. Jenna leaned forward, her gaze fixated on Ethan. "You're leading this, Ethan." His heart swelled at her words. In that moment, he felt not just like a young employee, he felt like a leader. Yes, he still had much to learn, but the trust they were placing in him reignited a fire within. "I will," he promised, sincerity punctuating his voice. As the meeting neared its conclusion, the atmosphere was charged with optimism. They had transformed from separate individuals to a cohesive unit, ready to unleash their ideas upon the world. One last round of affirmations echoed as everyone stood, their faces glowing with determination. Jason felt the adrenaline rush through him, the thrill of collaboration pulsing in the air. He asked, seeking to solidify their enthusiasm into something tangible. Came the unified response, a powerful affirmation that echoed off the walls, igniting a sense of solidarity in the room. And with that, they exchanged smiles and handshakes, their bonds strengthened. As they filed out of the meeting room, Ethan lingered for a moment, savoring the transformation that had taken place. Walking through the office hallways now felt different. The whispers of doubt that had haunted him were fading, replaced by a newfound belief. This was not just about him anymore. It was about them a thriving team ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He returned to his desk, the heaviness of expectation replaced with a buoyant sense of purpose. He opened his notebook, ready to jot down the ideas that had emerged. However, his mind was still swimming with the thrill of the meeting. Each moment from that discussion replayed in his thoughts like a cinematic montage, excitement, challenge, and triumph all intertwined. As he scribbled notes, a tap on the shoulder broke him from his reverie. It was Jenna, standing there with a smile that radiated confidence. "Great job in there, Ethan." His heart skipped a beat. Validation was a rare gift these days, and he could feel the pride bubbling within him. "Thank you, Jenna." "I felt the energy shift, and you really connected with everyone," she interrupted. "That's what makes a leader. The way you drew us all in today was impressive." Her words wrapped around him like a warm blanket. As Jenna walked away, Ethan reflected on his journey. He realized that he had started this project with icy fingers of doubt, but through collaboration and trust, they had transformed into something powerful. Days turned into weeks, and their shared vision began to take flight. They rallied around the goals they had set. Challenges came, a missed deadline here, an unexpected setback there, but each hurdle became an opportunity for growth. With every challenge, Ethan felt himself grow stronger, more confident in guiding his team. One afternoon, as they all gathered in the same meeting room to assess progress, the air crackled with a familiar energy. Everyone was engaged, their voices woven into the collective fabric of their development. Ideas exchanged easily as though they were building a masterpiece together, brick by brick. Ethan couldn't help but smile. They were no longer just a group of colleagues, they had become a family. It struck him as he glanced around the table. The camaraderie they shared now felt unbreakable. But then, amidst the vibrant conversation, Mike turned serious. "We should talk about what's next." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "Exactly. If we take this success and build on it, we can reach new markets. This isn't just a one-time project." The room fell quiet for a moment as they absorbed the weight of that statement. "Let's do it," Rachel said, holding the momentum like a torch. As the ideas poured forth again, Ethan felt an electric pulse of inspiration run through him. They were ready to take on the world, to break boundaries they had once thought impossible. The journey was not just about launching a product, it was about building a legacy grounded in trust and collaboration. Finally, as they wrapped up, Ethan felt a familiar rush of gratitude wash over him. It was fleeting yet profound. The transformation he had undergone was a testament not just to his growth, but to what they had built together. As he stepped out of the meeting room, feeling the energy surge through him once more, Ethan knew that his journey was far from over. They had a wealth of challenges and victories yet to come, and he felt ready to face them head-on. The world outside was expansive, inviting, filled with opportunities waiting to be grasped. This was just the beginning, and together they were unstoppable. With his heart swelling with purpose, he walked down the hallway, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The spark of collaboration, now roaring fire, fueled his every step. He had truly become a part of something extraordinary, and the future was gleaming with promise. He walked past the meeting room, and everyone stood up. The sight caught him off guard. Ethan paused for a moment, taking a deep breath as a twinge of panic swept through him. This was it, the moment he had both looked forward to and dreaded since the project had been launched. His palms felt clammy, and he could almost hear his heart thudding in his chest. A week had raced by since the project kickoff, marked by late nights, endless emails, and a whirlwind of ideas thrown against the wall, hoping something would stick. Now, the reality of it all swirled in his mind like a storm. The stakes were high. Everyone in that meeting room had a vested interest in the project, and failure would not just fall on him. It would ripple through the entire team. As he stepped into the meeting room, he glanced around at the faces, all waiting, expectant. There was Carla, the marketing director, known for her sharp wit and sharper insight. Next to her sat Marcus, the ever-skeptical analyst, his brow slightly furrowed, fingers tapping a steady rhythm on the table. Then there was Jenna, the team leader, whose calm demeanor belied the storm of ideas she carried. Each person looked at Ethan with a gaze that felt both encouraging and intimidating. "Good morning, everyone," Ethan began, his voice cracking slightly. The silence that followed hung in the air like a heavy curtain waiting to be drawn back. He took a shaky breath. "Thank you for being here." He could feel their eyes boring into him, filled with questions. Would they trust him? Would they follow his lead? Just a few weeks ago, he had been an ordinary employee, one of many, and now here he was, thrust into the spotlight. The pressure of expectation felt like a weight pressing down on his shoulders. He focused on the projector screen where bold graphs and colorful slides represented months of hard work. "I know that we've faced some challenges," he continued, trying to anchor his voice, "but there's a real opportunity ahead of us." As he spoke, Ethan watched the reactions around the room. Some leaned in closer while others simply stared, more unsure than ever. The anxiety was palpable. He felt the tension tighten as if a spring were about to snap. Then suddenly Marcus raised his hand. "Do we have the resources for all of this?" His tone was skeptical and Ethan's heart sank. A flicker of doubt crept into his mind. He had rehearsed these slides 100 times, but every ounce of confidence felt like it was slipping away. He took a deep breath and sought to regain control. "We've analyzed our budget, and while it's tight, we can reallocate funds to focus on the priority areas." A small nod from Jenna reassured him, but Marcus remained immovable. "Are you sure that's enough?" Ethan's stomach twisted. He knew Marcus had a point. One misstep could cost them dear, but if he let fear guide him now, they would never reach their full potential. "I understand your concerns, but this is our chance to innovate." A ripple of murmurs ran through the room. Ethan pressed on, fueled by the moment. "If we can create a product that truly meets the needs of our clients, they will come." Just then, Carla jumped in, her eyes sparkling. "What if we implement a beta test with a select group of clients?" Ethan could feel the room shift. Ideas flowed again as people spoke simultaneously, building on the momentum. Suddenly, the tension dissipated like mist in the morning sun. Yes, they were a team, they were cooking with gas. Motivated, Ethan looked around the table, feeling a spark of excitement. "Exactly, we can target key accounts and use their insights to refine our approach." As they began brainstorming ideas, he noticed how each person began to radiate confidence. The energy buzzed in the air and laughter punctuated the serious discussions. They were weaving together a tapestry of thoughts, each thread contributing to the overall design. Minutes turned into a whirlwind of strategy and creation, and Ethan felt like he was finally finding his voice. "So just to recap," he said, rubbing his hands together, electricity thrumming through him. "We'll start with the beta test and invite feedback from selected clients." Everyone nodded enthusiastically, and the weight of doubt that had once hung so heavily in the air was gone, replaced by an atmosphere of achievement. They were on the brink of something extraordinary. Just as they were wrapping up their plans, Marcus leaned back in his chair, a new glint in his eye. "All right, but let's keep our expectations grounded. I think we also need to prepare for potential backlash." Ethan nodded, the significance of Marcus's point not lost on him. "We need to proactively address concerns and ensure our messaging is transparent." He could feel the collective energy shift yet again, this time towards something more serious but equally important. They began to strategize how to manage potential backlash, discussing communication tactics and crisis scenarios, preparing for every possibility. The meeting continued, and ideas flowed easily, laughter punctuating their efforts. After what felt like hours of intense collaboration, Jenna finally leaned back in her chair, smiling. "I'm proud of us. We've come together and I can feel the excitement building." The room erupted into applause, and Ethan couldn't help but soak in the moment, feeling more like a leader than he had ever believed he could be. This wasn't just about him, it was about them, an entire team lifting one another up. As they wrapped up, Ethan glanced around the table, soaking in the smiles and the camaraderie. It was a moment he would remember, a turning point not just for the project, but for his confidence in their united front. They began to stand, preparing to leave the room, but then Jenna's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her expression instantly shifting to one of concern. Guys, we might need to hold on for a moment." That single sentence drew the attention of every person in the room, the energy that had once been high now laced with anxiety. Marcus asked, the skepticism returning. "They're calling an emergency meeting." Ethan's heart sank. He could feel a cold wave of dread wash over him. Just when they'd gained momentum, something dark loomed on the horizon, threatening everything they had just built. "Budget cuts. Sounds like they might be reallocating funds to boost another project at the expense of ours," Jenna replied, her voice steady but her eyes betraying her unease. Silence filled the room as the implications sank in. All the energy they had generated felt as fragile as a glass sculpture, threatened by an unseen hand. It was the kind of gut punch that froze them all in place. Ethan felt the panic rise. Would all their hard work be for nothing? Would the vision they had painstakingly crafted fall apart before they even had a chance to launch it? "Maybe we can present our progress and the importance of our project," Carla suggested, trying to dispel the heavy tension. Right, Ethan said, forcing a breath when he couldn't find a way to calm the turmoil inside him. Jenna nodded, her expression resolute. Determination stirred within him. They weren't done yet. If they had fought to come this far together, they could do it again. Okay, everyone, let's regroup later and assemble a solid presentation to defend our position, Ethan commanded, the embers of his resolve igniting. As his colleagues rallied, a glimmer of hope lingered in the air. The fight wasn't over. They had come together once, and they could rise to the challenge again. However, just as plans were being made, Ethan received a text notification that drew his attention. He looked at his phone and felt a knot form in his stomach. It was a message from his mentor, Richard, who had always guided him through the labyrinth of corporate challenges. Ethan, urgent, I heard about the cuts. You need to prepare for a different outcome. Don't be surprised if your project gets sidelined. More changes are coming. The words hit him like a punch to the gut. He felt his resolve waver as uncertainty flooded his mind. What had seemed like a bright future was now clouded with doubt. Would they really lose everything? Was he prepared to fight for something that might already be gone? The room felt heavy with ambiguity. Ethan looked up at his friends, colleagues, and teammates, his family. They were with him, but could he lead them into the unknown? Would he be strong enough to stand firm in the face of potential failure? This wasn't just about metrics or market strategies anymore. It was personal. It was about belief, hope, and the lengths they would go to protect what they had built together. As he looked back at his team, he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't let them down. He had to find a way to arm them with the spirit they had nurtured. Every challenge thrown their way would be met with courage, and they would stand united against whatever the future held. Determined, Ethan raised his head high and declared, "Let's turn this challenge into an opportunity. We can't back down." And with renewed resolve, they dove back into the storm, ready to face whatever came next, unaware that the tides of change were about to shift yet again. What lay ahead remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: their fight had only just begun.